Hello, everyone. Welcome to our free virtual tour, Discover Romania Tour. It's so lovely to see everyone. We are going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes for everyone to join in this meeting, and then we will start. If you don't know my face, my name is Georgiana, and I am a co-founder and a tour guide at Romanian Thrills alongside Vlad, who is my partner, and who is actually going to present this tour for you today. Some of you might know me from the Orient Express tour that I've done with Mara, but for those of you that have been following us, or if it's your first time watching us, I want to share a little bit about us. So Romanian Thrills is a boutique travel company based in Romania, and we specialize only in offering small group tours or private tours all throughout Romania. Unfortunately, COVID happened for us, and then we decided to start doing these free virtual tours and many other virtual experiences to keep Romanian people's minds and to, maintain the curiosity and stimulate interest in so much more, in so many things that Romania has to offer. We wanted to take it away from the vampire land kind of myth and just develop and enrich the knowledge of everyone that wants to get to know Romania. A few housekeeping rules. Everyone comes in muted. You do, however, have the opportunity to turn on your video if you want to. We love to see your faces, so we get to know you a little bit better. At the end, we will have a Q&A live session, and everyone is welcome to participate. And for today's tour, Discover Romania Tour, we also have a giveaway for our participants on Zoom. So if you are watching us on Zoom today, then you are automatically considered for the prize draw of a paperback copy of a book about Maramureș. I'll share a little bit more details later, and I'll also give you the link in the chat so that you can follow. We will give 1 or 2 more minutes break for everyone that wants to still join the meeting. And in the meantime, I would be so happy to find out where everyone is from. Alaska, wow, just had a 5.3 earthquake. That's definitely, not nice.
Scary.
Scary. Well, 5.3, I don't know. We have had in Romania some 5.3 in the past years. I didn't feel them, to be honest, and I live on the 9th floor. But Romania is in danger of some really big earthquakes in the future, so it's scary. It's no.
Yeah. But this was pretty big for 5.3 because it was real close. We had 7.3 a couple of years ago, and this one was not that much less than the 7.3. So,
okay.
But okay, I'll be quiet now.
No. Okay, I have some people that are joining in. Okay, perfect. I think we are ready. Vlad will take over from now on, and I will join you at the Q&A at the end.
Speaker is on mute.
Let me know. Hi, everyone. This is Vlad. Nice to have you over here. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear any music in the background. As always, we like to create a little bit of our tours. Let me know in the chat comments if it's too loud. Maybe we can turn it a little bit lower if that's better for you. And once we get used to this, we'll dive right into it. Let's see if we can adjust a little bit this so everyone can enjoy it. Okay. All right, there we go. All right. Just a little bit of atmosphere for the beginning. Is everything better now? Let me know. I'll be happy to continue like this. And I think we are ready to roll. Before we get into the tour and before I say a little bit about myself, I just wanted to launch a poll. Since Georgiana already did an introduction on our company and on Romania itself, I really wanted to see how familiar our viewers today are with Romania, because we do tours around Romania and we try to keep travel alive during these uncertain times. As we can see, there are earthquakes, there are blizzards and storms all around the world. So everyone should just stay safe in their homes until travel is safe again. So we want to keep you entertained with this. And in the meantime, we'd really like to know how did you find out about Romania, or how many things you know about Romania. So I will launch a poll in the Zoom meeting, and please let me know if you can see it, and you should be able to vote on this. Now it should come up on the screen, and then I can share the results with everyone. So today we'll go around Romania in a virtual journey. Basically, what we'll do, we'll take you on a 14-day throughout Romania. Since there's so many people to travel right now, the best way, closest way to do is to just incorporate all the activities, all the attractions, or the things we can see in a tour, and provide it to you virtually, so you can travel from the safety of your home. It's not going to be a very comprehensive tour in terms of, you know, deep diving into all the subjects and all the places we'll be going. However, we will touch a little bit the activities, the food and drinks, the accommodations, just to surface, just a preview to give you a sense of what it's about. So we got the poll, we got almost everyone voted. Thank you very much. And most of the people learned about Romania from us and would like to know more. That's very encouraging, because actually one of our main objectives when we started Romanian Thrills was to make this beautiful and hidden gem of a country known for international travelers. So we're really happy to see this feedback, and we're happy to share our knowledge and what we know, what we do in Romania. And maybe it can reignite that love for travel for everyone staying at home right now. So I shared the results. Everyone can see these right now, all the options. I know absolutely nothing about Romania, almost 20%. So that's why we are here. I've never been, but heard wonderful things. That's very nice as well. I've been in the past, and I'm curious how it changed. This is one of my favorites, to be honest, because I've heard from people that traveled even before communism fell in Romania, and it's definitely changed a lot. It's definitely a country of contrasts. So for those people, you're in for a treat. I have friends from Romania, which is always nice. The world is a smaller and smaller place every day. I have visited most of Europe except the Eastern countries. So we like to think Romania is still an unexplored and uncharted territory in this region of Europe. And it's true that most of the people travel first to Western Europe, especially if they cross the ocean to come here. I think because of the travel time and the distance that one needs to put into and the effort to put to come to Romania, a better option to travel the country is through longer tours. You don't just spend 2-3 days traveling and then just to get to Romania, and then spend a few days or a weekend break and then go to the next country. So what we want to do is encourage people to just delve into it and engage with what Romania has to offer. As such, we actually will go through one of our longest itineraries in Romania for 2 weeks, on which you Don't see the whole country, of course, but in our opinion is one of the most balanced journeys that you can take in Romania. So without further ado, we'll stop this poll and we'll get to it. I just want to provide a little bit of background about Romania and about the itinerary. There will be 14 days around the country. We don't have to go through all of them right now because first I want to show where Romania is on the map and what you could expect to see in Romania. So maybe some of these sound familiar to you. Bucharest, the capital, 𝗕𝗂𝘁 Castle, one of the nicest castles we have here in Romania. 𝗂𝗫 land, not a lot of people heard of this, but we'll talk about it later. Bears and Hotsprings. This is the Bears situation. I think a lot of people are aware of it, about Romania, but Hotsprings, not so much. So I'll be happy to share that with you. Gateway to Moldova. We'll cross actually later in Moldova through our itinerary. Not the country, but the region in Romania. We'll talk about that. Bucovina, one of the nicest places in northern part of Moldova in Romania. Then we'll cross to Transylvania through a gateway into the mountains. We'll see the rural life and the villages frozen in time, such as 𝗪𝗫 that will go later on. One of the favorite places of Prince Charles as well. Then we continue to see it in 𝗵𝗂𝗫𝗄. 𝗵𝗂𝗫𝗄 also being what other people call the other capital of Romania, one of the most developed cities in Romania as well. And continue to 𝗕𝗂𝗀, a beautiful salt mine, spectacular. 𝗷𝗵𝘀 will be a citadel in a very interesting style. And continue with the medieval towns of Biertan and Sighișoara, followed by Brașov and Bran, where the infamous castle of Dracula supposedly rests. Now we continue our journey before going back to Bucharest to one of the most beautiful roads in the country and in the world, voted by many publications, the 𝗪𝗪𝘁. I know it's very complicated to pronounce, but once we get there, we'll talk about it more. So what I wanted to show over here was just the geography of Romania, situated in Eastern Europe, in the eastern part of Europe, part of the European Union as well. We have another map over here. We have the neighbors, Ukraine to the north, Bulgaria to the south, Hungary to the west, Serbia southwest, Black Sea to the east, and a little bit of Ukraine and Moldova. All these countries actually shaped and influenced the culture of Romania throughout the ages. And of course, it didn't look exactly like this back in the days. Romania used to be split in 3 different provinces in medieval times. It was Transylvania, the one that most of the people heard of in the northwest part of the country, influenced by Hungary and the Austro-Hungarian Empire for most of the time. Then we had Wallachia to the south, which is also where Bucharest is and where the Romanian population was concentrated the most. This was influenced greatly by the Ottoman Empire to the south for many, many centuries as well. We also have Moldova, which was actually called as Moldavia. Moldavia was a greater region, incorporating what we today know as the Republic of Moldova. So after World War II, this was split into 2 provinces. Moldova, part of Romania that you see now with in here in green, and the other one that you see as Moldova over here as an independent country that used to be part of the Soviet Union. And last but not least, a small strip of land over here just by the coast of the Black Sea called 𝗪𝗪𝗪. This used to be part of Wallachia, but later invaded and incorporated into the Ottoman Empire. So I get the feedback that we could maybe pass the music a little bit louder. Let's see if this would be better. Just as a background for us. There we go. Okay. So we'll keep it back lower, I guess. There we go. there's no intermediate option with this one, but trust me, if you do come to Romania, we will not be shy on the music. There are some really nice folk music options that you can enjoy. So moving on with the map, these are the sub-regions of Romania on which we will travel to today. Starting from Bucharest, that you can see is in a sub-region called Muntenia. Then we'll cross to Moldova, going around Bucovina, Maramuresh, Transylvania, coming back through Muntenia in here. So you see, we don't touch all the sub-regions, but it's a very comprehensive journey. This is the itinerary that we'll go through. Just a quick overview, and we'll move forward with it. Before we dive into the itinerary itself, I just want to make everyone aware that we do have a quiz, as well as Georgiana mentioned. We will have a reward. We'll have a raffle for the person who gets the best score, or in case of multiple people, a raffle for William Blacker's book, Along the Enchanted Way. So pay attention and get on the quiz, and good luck. So we'll start obviously with Bucharest, because this is the main hub in terms of airport transportation, everything around the country. Although it's not a place where we spend most of the time, there are certain things that are attractive. Bucharest, especially from a more cultural or historical point of view, that explorers might want to see. Now, after you arrive and get coffee, we invite you to a promenade, how we used to say, or a walking tour of the old town, and discover the 500-year-old history of the city, exploring the highlights of the Romanian capital. This is how it used to look 100 years back in the days when there was no Facebook, when there were not as many cars. As you can see, a lot more people. And this was actually the Facebook or the Clubhouse or whatever other apps are out there right now. If you wanted to be seen, and if you wanted to talk about anything from politics to vaccines, even back in the days, you would go out there on the promenade. This is called Victory Street, where the nicest buildings and the most important shops used to be and still are today. So you needed to show off and get your Sunday clothes, as we like to say. While we stroll around in Bucharest, no visit would be complete without a stop to the Romanian Athenaeum. This is a building that was started in the late 1800s, the 19th century, and it's one of the few buildings that was constructed with money raised by public subscription, like crowdfunding nowadays. It took more than 20 years to gather the money, and there was like a huge marketing slogan: donate 1 leu, which is the Romanian currency, translating to lion, 1 leu for the Ateneu, for the Athenaeum. So with huge efforts of the population and some scientists, they managed to build a building for sciences and arts. And nowadays it hosts some of the most important opera festivals. It's just beautiful to stroll inside as well. You can take a guided visit only with a guide. It's a concert hall. It hosts one of the most important festivals in the country, called UNESCO Festival, which used to be one of the greatest composers of Romania. During the pandemic, actually, they have live streaming events because they couldn't host the event live anymore in front of an audience. So if you do check their website, you might get a chance to see the opera performing live for no charge, which is usually very expensive to go inside. One thing I want to mention about it is that it shows one of the best examples and one of the best examples of storytelling the Romanian history, because this was the place where Romanians voted to unify Moldova and Transylvania and Wallachia, the three provinces that we talked about. Over here, They painted this fresco, if you pay attention, around the chairs, a fresco from here in the beginning, going in a circle all the way around and finishing back over here from the very early days of Romanians, from the Roman Empire and before, until the unification of the Romanian provinces. So it's a very, very beautiful, very beautiful building with great acoustics, and it's definitely worth a visit. Now, before we move into the old town of Bucharest, we do need to realize that half of it does not exist anymore because our beloved dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, destroyed half of it and 1/5 of the city, basically the whole region that you see in green, for his megalomaniac project called House of the People. Only problem was it was not a house for the people. It was most like his ambitious goal to build a new building for the political party of the communists. One major problem was that he didn't have such a large balcony like other dictators had, so he can address the crowds. This building was designed with a team of approximately 700 architects and tens of thousands of workers. It was started in the 80s. Ceausescu actually used the pretext of an earthquake, speaking again of earthquakes, in a large earthquake in 77 that destroyed some of the city, razed everything to the ground, moved people to the outskirts of Bucharest, and built this, which today hosts the Palace of Parliament. Although only 2% of the building is used. It's a huge, huge building. It was never finished during the reign of Ceausescu, unfortunately for him. He didn't get a chance to get over there. It's one of the highest buildings that used to be in communism in Bucharest. It's 84 meters tall, an area of 300,000 square meters, and weighs more than 4 million tons. It's actually the heaviest building in the world. It's the second largest administrative building in the world after the Pentagon. And if you remember 2001, 9/11, I swear we don't have any connection with it, but when one plane crashed into Pentagon, destroyed parts of it, Palace of Parliament became #1 for a brief period of time, but still. Nothing to really boast about, but it's an impressive building. We as locals have mixed feelings about it because the construction is just very opulent. And the reason why it's the heaviest building in the world is not because it's the widest. It's the construction materials, most of it being built entirely out of marble. 99% of the materials are Romanian. Just a few of them were imported, such as the crystal, the Bohemian crystal for the chandeliers that you can spot over here, and over here, and over here, and over here, and so on. And also another reason for it being so heavy is that it actually resembles more of an iceberg. So you see its height, but it's even more tall on the underground. It's 84 meters tall, is 96 meters deep down inside because Ceausescu built it as a bunker in case of a nuclear attack, and he wanted to have a safe place to escape the city in case of a revolution. Didn't move in soon enough for that because a revolution came in 1989, and he didn't get the chance to use the building as he wished. So other person actually was the first to speak from the balcony of this building. It was not a Romanian. If anyone knows who this was, please drop the comments in the chat. You get extra points, I promise. It was a pop star, very, very famous in the 90s, probably the most famous pop star of the 90s. And he came to Romania in a former communist country that came in. So it was Michael Jackson that was here for his Dangerous tour, worldwide tour. He came over here, had a huge concert. Legend has it, we still own the record for the largest number of females fainting at a concert. They had signs with "Thank you, Mike," "We love you, Michael." Ambulances were going back and forth from the hospital, taking them, and so on. It was crazy. Imagine it was the first concert because you didn't have access to Western music before in communism. So it was a big deal. So what happened was that before his concert, he came to tour the Palace of Parliament, and he wanted to address his fans that found out about it and gathered in front of this square, the square in which Ceausescu would hope to find his fans, but didn't really work out for him. So Michael comes up and addresses the Romanian population saying, "I am so happy to be here with you, Budapest." So there was a moment of silence. Budapest is the capital of Hungary, our neighbors. But then people forgot it was Michael Jackson. It was in Romania. He was in Romania. So everybody just went along and kept cheering for him. But this was just the beginning of a long case of confusions between Bucharest and Budapest. A lot of other artists confused these two cities. This is the region and this is the area where the concert would be held, in this parking lot. This is actually a picture from the pandemic. So not a lot of things happening right now. And I actually think I have a quick movie about him, but I think it's too complicated. There we go. No, it's not going to play out, but it's a movie with Michael addressing the crowds during those times. Now, I told you he wasn't the first one or the last one. In like 5-7 years ago, there was a football game, a soccer game in Bucharest between two Spanish teams. And one group of supporters from a Spanish team called Athletic Bilbao, they bought a charter plane instead of going to Bucharest, where the final game was, to Budapest. So imagine 400 football supporters hours before the start of the game they were lost in Budapest, hundreds, thousands of miles away from Bucharest in Romania. So they ended up watching the game on TV. Quite a costly mistake. So since then, we actually started a website. It's called www.bucharestnotbudapest.com to end the confusion. Hopefully it will not be it would not happen as much from now. Now, moving forward into the old town of Bucharest, we see very beautiful churches all around. But nowadays, less than 10% of the churches that used to be here exist, because Ceausescu didn't like this either, so demolished a lot of them, as we discussed before. What happened though, there was an engineer that saved from destruction lots of churches by using a very ingenious method. This is called 𝗪𝗶𝘃 Church. It means the city of the cross. It was built in the 1700s when we still had an Ottoman Greek influence into our country. So you can still see this beautiful arches, beautiful columns in a style that is called a Neo-Romanian style. It's one of the most unique styles in the world. If you do come to Romania, you'll see this on buildings dating from 1700s to 1900s. Now, this church also has a very beautiful courtyard. It's right in the middle of the old town where all the clubs are banging and everyone is coming out. There's a lot of noise, but in here, it's just a peace and tranquility. It's like a corner, a small corner of paradise right in the middle of the city. It's one of my favorite places, and I encourage everyone that visits Bucharest to pay a visit to this particular church. Now, the engineer I told you about managed to save from destruction lots of churches by moving them from the way of the boulevards that Ceausescu wanted to build. So once these churches were moved and they were hidden away through different blocks of flats, Ceausescu was, he didn't care as much. So they used rail tracks they dig trenches, they put hydraulic pumps, lifted the whole foundation and the whole church on rail tracks and moved it meters, tens of meters, hundreds of meters away in order to save them from the communist leader. Not only that, but the communist leader, seeing this technique, he approached it and managed to move entire blocks of flats with people inside them, with water and electricity still going, yes, on rail tracks, because they were just in front of his boulevards, and he wanted huge boulevards. He actually wanted his boulevards to be wider than the 𝗕𝗄𝗄𝗄𝗂. It was just a statement for him. So many buildings were saved through this technique, and this technique is now used widely all around the world. It's quite impressive. The story of people moved from this block that you see in the picture. They were still inside the building when they were moving the block, because they got a short notice, like tomorrow we're going to move the block. Some people didn't see it and they were stuck in there, but running water and electricity is still going. Now, moving onwards, I want to share a restaurant as well with you once in the old town. This is 𝗪𝗶 is one of the oldest establishments left in the old town and saved from destruction. It's 200 years old. It's built in a caravanserai style, in an oriental style. This was a roadside inn where travelers could rest and recover from a day's journey. This supported the flow of commerce, information, and people across the network of the Silk Road. Because Bucharest, halfway from Istanbul or Constantinople to Vienna, it was a very important trade route, and they needed protection and shelter in front of, rogue bandits and so on. If you take a look around, you still see the unique design today. So the descendants of the original owners managed the building as original and as authentic as back in the days. One of the reasons why we really like this place, and there's another reason why we like this place a lot. It's their food. Around this area, legend has it that the famous 𝗵𝘁 were born. These are the Romanian 𝗵𝘁, or 𝗵𝘂𝗍, which in translation means little ones. And it's skinless sausages that people say invented in the old town of Bucharest. One of the cooks ran out of the pork skin to put the minced meat in. So people were hungry. He just decided to share this with them. They loved it. It's basically some minced meat with herbs and spices put on the grill. It's very different than a kebab or similar dishes around this area. But the only proper way to eat them is with mustard. Mustard and bread, or mustard and French fries. But this is the only way to do it. And you need to wash them down with a good pint of beer. Now, you walked, you ate. It's high time to take a rest. You've traveled a lot, and it's been a long flight. So one of the nicest places we like to think is to spend the night in Bucharest is Hotel Lido. And don't worry, it doesn't look as it looks in this picture. This is from the interbellum period, the interwar period. It's one of the oldest hotels still standing in Bucharest, and that still kept its original architecture, modern architecture. It's very nicely redesigned. These are pictures from the communist times. No, they did not have TVs back in the interwar period. And this is how they managed to turn it in recent years. So it's definitely a good night's stay, and you'll feel refreshed and ready for the next day. Next day, when we continue our journey to Peles Castle and Wine Valley. And folks, stop me if you need to. If you have any questions, address them in the chat, and me or Georgiana will respond to them. And if you do have any questions along as well, keep them in mind for the Q&A at the end. So continuing our journey is to one of our favorite castles. After a hearty breakfast, we make our way to this fairy tale castle in Sinaia. It's a royal palace nested discreetly into the mountains. It's a summer residence that was built for the first king of modern Romania and is boasting impressive interiors. Now, we get a better glimpse of it from here. King Carol I initially was Prince of Romania from 1866, and then King of Romania since 1881. This happened because of the War of Independence against the Ottoman Empire. So now Romania is a sovereign country, independent, recognized by everyone else. The provinces that formed Romania back in the days were always autonomous, always independent. However, they had to pay tribute to either the Ottoman Empire, either to Russia or Poland, depending on the case, Hungary or Austro-Hungary. So there were smaller provinces that always needed to find allies back and forth. Now, King Carol I was the first sovereign to rule a strong Romania, a united Romania, and he wanted the royal summer residence for his family. Sinaia proved to be an excellent location. He refused many based on the account that they were not original and just copycats of the Western castles. But the style of the castle is neo-Renaissance, Gothic in ways, similar to the castle of Neuschwanstein in Germany. Built actually a little bit later than the castle here, but in very similar periods of times. So he really wanted a place where he can invite other people, other royal couples to show and prove his strength. The originality actually proved a winning move as well for his wife, because the Queen Elizabeth of Romania found inspiration here and started writing under the alias Carmen Silva, became very well known not only to Romanians but to other royal circles. Now this is also was the first electrified castle in Europe. And the energy came from a local source, as there was a micro power plant built nearby exactly for this purpose. There's also a central heating system, a centralized vacuum cleaning system, and an elevator, and they all still work in pristine condition to this day, of course, with due maintenance. It has more than 170 rooms, mainly dedicated to different world cultures that the kings were receiving, their diplomats and so on, and more than 30 bathrooms, which for that period was crazy. Most of the nobles didn't have a proper bathroom either. Now, even though the castle was officially opened in 1883 with the first arrival of the Orient Express train in the station of Sinaia, it wasn't completely finished until 1914, just before First World War. And you can see the interiors. There's a lot of collections of statues, paintings, furniture, armory, anything from gold to silver, stained glass, which is highly intricate to paint, and carved wood as well. There's anything from ivory, porcelain, tapestries, rugs, you name it. It had it all. It's one of the castles that kept not the heritage, but the arts and the collections inside, and it's one of the few ones that was not stripped of all these elements by the communists or any other people. And in my opinion, one of the most beautiful decorations over here is Georgiana during one of our tours. This is a surprise. Now we move onwards from the Peles Castle because it's time to head to the Romanian wine road, where a cluster of vintners have taken advantage of the perfect soil conditions, and they started creating delightful wines. I know you would think wines of Romania, never heard of. Now, listen up. We visit 2 vineyards, we talk to the owners, we taste some of their best vintages and take a tour of the estates. This day is a lot about relaxation and discovering the surprising Romanian wine. And we'll find out why it's surprising. This is the Romanian wine map. And this area here, highlighted in green, is the wine region of Romania, or the wine road of Romania, the one which we'll be traveling through. It is on the same parallel 45 degrees with Bordeaux in France. So it's an excellent place, excellent terroir, excellent soil conditions and sun conditions for red wines, especially full bodies. On the other hand, Transylvania is excellent over here for white wines, contrary probably to what the fans of Dracula might have thought. There's a lot of more white wine in Transylvania than red. Since most of the Romanian dishes go well with red wine, we'll explore this region. And we'll find out more about Romanian wine because even though it's not well known, it was always on top of the top producing countries. Back in communist times, it was in top 10 because they focused on quantity and not on quality. However, winemaking began to grow in quality after the revolution of 1989. Once the vineyards were given back to the rightful owners, the vintners soon understood the potential and shifted to produce improved wine. Now you can see a top producing countries for the year 2019, and Romania is still there. It's not top 10. I think it's 13 nowadays. However, the quality of the wine gets better and better now because it has all the conditions. It just needed the knowledge, the expertise, and the focus on quality, not on quantity. So if you ever see any Romanian wines in bars, restaurants, or even supermarkets, they're starting to come up, do give them a try. Now, I want to share with you a specific type of wine of Romania because we can track the existence of vineyards on Romanian territory back to the year 7000 BC. And of course, we have come a long way since. Our ancestors, the Dacians, used to grow vines as well. The Romans, they say they conquered the area also for the great wine, not the gold. Of course, it was the gold. But all the grapes known today descend from the wild grape, which is called Vitis vinifera silvestris. This is a vine type that was found on Romanian territory and is still cultivated today. This is a 100% Romanian grape, Fetească Neagră. You see this little name over here. It translates to Black Maiden. This is endemic to Romania, to say so, and it's definitely my favorite. It's dry, it goes well with meats, stews, and most of the hearty dishes that we are used to in Romania. You'll definitely have a good time wine tasting in here. And because we want to take the experience a little bit further, we actually want to get you the chance to experience a wine blending workshop where in front of a sommelier and a master blender, you will be making your own wine that you can bottle and take as a souvenir, or if you're thirsty, drink it on the road while on your Romanian journey. Now, one of the reasons also I wanted to point out why Romanian wine is not so well known outside of Romania is because we have a huge wine consumption. So we consume 99% of the wine we produce, leaving only 1% for the export. Now, I think these numbers are starting to grow with the more the vintners realize there's profits to be made, and the wine gets more and more appreciated, with many awards actually being won internationally. I think these are things are starting to look up, but we'll see how it goes. We really like our wine as well. And after a good wine tasting, you might end up like me or Georgiana or any of our guests, to be honest, just taking a small siesta, a break in the vineyard directly. There's no better place to do so, especially in the harvest months like September, October. It's really the best place to do it. And we'll spend the night where we're supposed to do it, right in the vineyard. There are all kinds of manors that were built by these vintners with wine cellars and so on. So you can visit it in the morning or at night, who knows. It's really one of the nicest places to stay around, and you wake up with this view. You can't really ask for more. So, not comparing it to Italy, but I think we're getting there slowly. Moving onwards, after an excellent day wine tasting and seeing castles, we continue into 𝗥𝗂𝗄𝐿and. 𝗥𝗂𝗄𝐿and is a county where the Hungarian minority lives predominantly, and we can blend with their traditions. This is an area between Transylvania, Wallachia, and Moldova that is still inhabited by Hungarian descendants. So they still keep their traditions alive, which we really like. And we really believe in unity and diversity. So we want to pay them a visit for a cooking workshop. We visit the countryside, and our first stop is to get involved in a hands-on workshop with the local millers, where they produce their own flour and they teach us how to make 𝗕𝗂𝗪𝗁𝗂𝗪. 𝗕𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗁𝗂 is this chimney cake over here. It's also known as the chimney cake. And it's really fun to make. We'll make it from scratch. It's delicious. It's a sweet, like pastry-like sweet dough, turned on a pike on the grill over here. Let's see if I can show you a little video of it, but I don't think it will work. Well, for the videos, we can definitely get back to at the end of the tour. And in the meantime, we'll continue with this one. Let's see. So this is Georgiana on the trying her skills on the chimney cake. Okay. And this is the end result. Really, really delicious. You can sprinkle it with all kinds of stuff, from walnuts, which is the traditional way, cocoa, more recent, or even coconut flakes if you'd like. Glaze it with honey, all kinds of delicious ways. And trust me, it's really, really good, especially with coffee. So after we get energized from a little bit of coffee and the lunch over there at the local miller's house, we go to the local cooper, who's specialized in producing barrels or wooden hot tubs. And while we're here trying to get the trade from, to learn the trade from him, we enjoy a sample of a local homemade brandy, of which we'll talk about later. Since we're tired after our trip, we will need to spend the night in one of my favorite accommodations all around Romania. This is actually a whole estate. It's called Zabola estate of Count Mikeș, also Hungarian/Indian nobleman that restored old manors after taking them, after he took them back from the communists after the revolution. You can go around a lake. You can take a boat on the lake and just have a romantic escape over there, or just stroll the parks of the estate, looking for some wildlife, looking for any relaxation options around. It's really in the middle of the nature, but with all the comforts and amenities that you can imagine. Really proper noble style. And you have bathtubs and everything else in your room. A sauna right in the middle of the woods. You do have to walk a little bit to get to the sauna, but the view from the sauna towards the castle is really nothing better than that. So definitely relax after a day of walking around and exploring Romania. Now, we continue our journey with bears and hot springs. And from the Zabola estate, we make our way to Lake St. Anne. This is one of the only volcanic lakes in Europe. And it has like a microclimate and it's a small area for biodiversity. You're not allowed to swim in it or anything like that. You can take a boat and go around it, but it's also a very beautiful place for a picnic in the middle of the nature. You can also spot a lot of wildlife, birds, and very different plants. On the side of the lake, it's a place called 𝗪𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫, and it's built on it came out to life on a former volcanic land where a microhabitat developed with species only found there, such as these carnivorous plants. I know they don't look really like the Super Mario game or anything like that, but I've seen insects being eaten by those little plants. Now, as I told you, it's a great place for bird watching, but also it's a chance to taste your falconry skills. there's people who test, who practice this. It's a very expensive, laborious, and there's a lot of effort involved in falconry, a tradition that some of the people in the area keep. And you might encounter a special visitor as well. Romania actually has 1/3 of the total brown bear population of Europe, one of the largest in the world. And it's not uncommon to see bears around. Bears are misunderstood creatures. A lot of people will run for them and get scared. The bear will only get scared too. They're very shy, and they usually run away at the very first noise they hear. However, some of these bears around this lake got used to tourists, so now they're just going around swimming. There's a bear with the cubs going around in the trees. There are park rangers watching over your safety, of course, but it's very, very common to see this just in their own natural habitat. So after we pay a visit to this wonderful scenery, we continue relaxing in one of the nicest hot springs resorts, I would say even in Europe, because we know France has its and Austria has their own and so on, but not a lot of people know Romania has a lot of thermal waters. It used to be known even when back in the days it was split in 3 different provinces. The province of Transylvania that was actually incorporated at one point in the Austro-Hungarian Empire had the most luxurious and opulent hot springs resorts in Europe, surpassing Bath or anything like that. Fortunately, now not all of them are back to their former glory, but 𝗵𝗂 in this middle of the forest, in this area full of nature, is a really nice stop. It gets quite cold in there, so the thermal water really helps relax. And after you're ready to go to bed, we won't let you go away because it's cold outside before you try one of the spirits local to the area. In this region, they call it 𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗏. It has Hungarian influence, Hungarian origins, but in all honesty, it's very similar to what all the Balkan countries are doing. For 𝗪𝗁𝘁 in other countries, to 𝗁𝗁 in Wallachia, for example, or schnapps in the German countries and so on. They're all basically distilled, they're brandy from different fruits, distilled fruits, spirits. This particular brand is exceptional. 𝗵𝗀𝗪𝗏 is one of the best ones that can be found in this area. They're really, really pure. They don't use any sugar or anything else. And it's a really nice experience to enjoy this 𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗏. But you need to be aware it's very, very strong. It's usually between 50, 60. You can go even over 60% alcohol in percentage, not in volume. Now, if you want something not as strong, you can go with 𝗁𝗁𝗁. As I told you, this is the more Wallachian version. It's usually made out of plums. And yes, my side business also is to distill 𝗁𝗁𝗁. I actually have a factory and I put my name on it for everyone to recognize it. It's actually the logo of Vlad the Impaler, one of my distant cousins. And because it goes well with tourists, one of the companies actually put his face on the bottle. He doesn't have any official descendants, so there's no royalty fees or any copyright infringements in there. But this is usually not as strong. It's usually 30–40% in alcohol. And for the ladies, have something else, another suggestion, something called 𝗪𝗁𝗪, which literally means sour cherry liquor. In all honesty, this is my favorite one of the 3, but don't tell anyone because it's considered more of a girly drink in Romania. It's usually between 15–20, at tops 25% alcohol. But it's delicious because it's got that sour and sweet taste to it. And I don't know, I could probably drink it for forever. But definitely don't leave Romania without trying this. So now we're wined and dined and we need to move forward. to Moldova. So we started from Wallachia, went through the Secchi land, the region with Hungarian influences, and we make our way through the Moldova region of Romania. And we do so through the Bicaz Gorge, a road full of ravines built on a former riverbed, one of the most spectacular rock formations in the country. This gateway takes us from Transylvania to Moldavia, where the impressive citadel, Neamt Citadel, marks our first stop in the region. And this is how the Neamt Fortress used to look like before it was renovated. This was like a journey back into the fascinated and agitated history of the Romanian province of Moldova. It was a time in which the fortress was consolidated and turned into an impenetrable stronghold. As you can see from all the bastions, all the bridge, there was drawbridges over here. It managed to actually hold on successfully during the siege of Sultan Mehmet II, the conqueror of Constantinople. There was a ruler in Moldova called Stephen the Great, and despite his short stature, they said that his sword was the same height as himself. He managed to defend the positions with 1/3 of the people that he was fighting against. He was fighting 40,000 soldiers against 120,000 soldiers, and managed to keep Moldova independent during those troubled times. Now you can imagine, nowadays access to a citadel is much easier than during medieval times, but imagine during people going on these pillars, and then there's a drawbridge, and the horses are usually scared of heights, and all the defenders are throwing at you cannons, bows, all kinds of weapons. So it definitely wasn't a nice area where you would stay. What you see on the lower end of the screen, there was a river flowing around, so you couldn't climb, you couldn't do really anything. The citadel was equipped with a well, so you couldn't cut their water supply or starve them to death. It was one of the most important fortresses in Moldova. Now, after crossing this dizzying arch, the arch bridge basically in a curb area, you enter the inner yard through this drawbridge, which used to have a trap also. Let's say you make it over to the bridge and you're finally inside the fortress. Surprise, surprise, there are all kinds of traps for you that can ruin your attack. It also has really beautiful views, so it's just a fascinating fortress to visit, and will definitely leave a profound mark on you if you do get over there. Now, at the end of the day, we spend the evening actually and the night in this little small family business museum / accommodation. The owner of this bed and breakfast is the son of a naive artist, Mr. Popa, who transformed the house of his parents into a living museum accommodation. It has many stories to tell. It's filled with many interesting collections of folk arts, traditional objects, paintings, and it offers a journey through Romanian culture from a different perspective. So we love hidden gems like this one, supporting a family business and keeping these arts and crafts alive, and the heritage is really something that we strive to do in each and every tour that we design. And because we want to support this as well, we can have a delicious, locally cooked dinner by this family in a charming setting that can compete, honestly, with any restaurant in the area. And the food you can have there, it's usually much better than the line restaurants. Now, one example of food we can have over there is 𝗪𝗫𝗪 moldovenească. I will not ask you to pronounce this. It's crazy difficult, but just call it Moldavian stew. And it literally means chopped food. It's a dish made from pork, or in most mountain regions, sheep meat, cut in small cubes, cooked over low fire in its own fat and juices. Usually it's done in a cast iron pot, and it's traditionally served, and this is very important, with 𝗷𝗫𝘂𝗔 eggs and the omnipresent polenta. Now, what you see over here is a more artistic interpretation of it. It's something that they would cook on this in this bed and breakfast, but a very traditional homemade, parents or grandma's house would look like this. Equally delicious, very hearty dough, so you might need a little bit of that palinka or red wine at the end. Now, moving forward with our itinerary, we break into the heart of Moldova towards Bucovina, the north part of Moldova, where we can see the painted churches, the painted monastery. These are symbols of the Christian Orthodox religion of Romania and are included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. There are many to explore, but today I'll show you 3 of the most beautiful ones, in our opinion. One of them is 𝗪𝗂𝗪 Monastery, very beautiful backyard. There's all kinds of elements painted on the exterior walls, well preserved. These date further as far as 500 years back, and they still preserve their original painting, which for many scientists is still a miracle. This is a close-up from 𝗪𝗂𝗪 Monastery that I showed you before. They are considered actually masterpieces of Byzantine art. This was the influence of the times in mid-1500s. And the interior and exterior walls are covered in exquisite, vividly colored mural paintings dating from those times. And of course, next to the churches, you'll find the nun convents, beautifully maintained by the nun community. Flowers, they grow their own vegetables, and you can even have a meal with them. So it's really a nice experience in the middle of the nature, and sometimes you really feel a connection once you're there. It's hard to describe it through a virtual tour, but once you're there, you really feel it. Now we have 2 more. We have Moldovița, as I showed you, monastery as well, and they might look to you very similar because it's a virtual tour. Trust me, once you go there, each and every one is so different, not only in the frescoes that are painted on the walls, but also on the surroundings and the way they're managed. So it's a very interesting and unique experience to do. Now, why do you think they painted these walls? Just for decoration? Because a lot of people asked us this, but to be honest, all decorations are actually ideas that people try to get across. So back in those times, people were not as literate as they are today. So they couldn't really understand the word of the Bible, read the Bible for this reason, because the church wanted to have as many followers as with anyone in a position of power. They decided to make it easier for the people to understand the word of God, and they painted scenes from the Bible on the church. So if you go around the church, it's like a story. It's like reading a visual Bible. I think it was one of the best marketing schemes, one of the greatest marketing tricks, and it helped a lot of people to keep faith. And this faith actually helped stand against the mighty Ottoman Empire in this region, for example, because they were thinking they were fighting for a higher belief. Fortunately, these times are gone. One of the close-ups that I want to show you is one of the most beautiful paintings. Imagine this is 500 years old, and is the Last Judgment, beautifully put out on the back of the church. It's on the south part, so it's more protected from the elements. It's warmer, it's not as much snow over there, so it managed to be kept alive throughout all these centuries. You really need to go there to fully admire the artwork. And after so many visits to these churches and monasteries, we make a quick lunch break for one of my favorite dishes in Romanian cuisine. It's actually, for us, it's like a liquid appetizer. You always have 𝗕𝗏, this is how you pronounce it, and then something else, like a main course. So it's like it's something before your full meal. But trust me, sometimes a 𝗕𝗏 can be a full meal in itself. Most of our travelers cannot eat a 𝗕𝗏 and the main course. So careful on this one. Now, 𝗕𝗏 is like a sour soup. You might think it's similar to the borscht, to the Russian borscht. It's very different actually, although it's still served with sour cream and spicy pepper. It can be beef or chicken 𝗕𝗏, meatball 𝗕𝗏, veggie 𝗕𝗏. There's actually a lot of vegetable dishes in Romania as well, and many other variations. But it's very hydrating, and it's really like a whole meal in itself if you get the meaty ones. So highly encouraged to try this one. After lunch, we continue to a black pottery workshop between our visits to the monasteries. And it's this place that makes a unique type of pottery. Just a few places in the world create this. The local artisans, they create wonders out of this clay. It's a special technique in order to end up with black pottery. Now, with the pandemic, they actually reoriented and started designing interior decorations made out of ceramics and clay, such as chandeliers or all kinds of things, from kitchen top. They do everything. In the evening, we need a charming and peaceful house to recharge the batteries. It's a place surrounded by gorgeous forested hills with a family-oriented garden where kids and adults alike can play and enjoy the tranquility of the meadows unbothered. It's right in the heart of Bucovina. Very beautiful place, and it will ensure a really nice stay and ready for the next day. The next day, when we cross back from Moldova to Transylvania through some high mountains, and it's like a mountain pass. It's called Prislo Pass. But before we do that, we get to know the iconic tradition of egg decorating by visiting a museum of an internationally reclaimed Romanian artist. So egg painting predates actually Christianity. It's like a pagan tradition, and it's one of the oldest decorative arts. In Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches, painting Easter eggs is a beloved tradition which symbolizes the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, normally they are painted red to represent the blood of Jesus, and the hard shell of the egg represents the sealed tomb of Christ. And cracking the shell represents Jesus' resurrection from the dead. This is a tradition we usually do at Easter. Now, in Romania, this tradition is very much kept alive today, and especially in this region of Bucovina, because other countries like Ukraine have the same tradition. This lady that we'll talk about in a second elevated actually this craft from just a local tradition with hours and hours of passion and dedication. She created more than 10,000 masterpieces displayed into the largest painted egg museum in the world. And it's not just simple decorations like you've seen over here that maybe my mom or my grandma can do. This is an entire art. She goes all over the place for art exhibitions. And furthermore, she keeps this alive by teaching and hosting summer camps to kids and adults alike. She patented more than 14 different painting techniques, inspired, as we can see from the painted churches, inspired from motives, from ideas that people wanted to share forward. These are patterns that she paints are found in textiles and sculptures. They're patterns of life, of faith, of nature, of love. And what we actually love most about her is that she really cares deeply about preserving this heritage. And if you're willing to put in the work, you can even participate into a workshop and test your skills like the kids over here. Now, later on, we pass the mountains and we climb high up on a plateau towards a special waterfall. It's called Horses Waterfall, not because these two horses are in the picture, but actually there's a lot of horses in the area. They say the horses were scared by some bears in the area at one point, and the horses that fell from a cliff, and they stumbled, and while they stumbled, they cried so much that they lost their the person that had them and they turned it into a waterfall. So the Horses waterfall that you can see over here is an easy hike where you can just enjoy some beautiful nature and some friends along the way. This is like a tailor bug. You can find it around in woods, wooden areas. And we can stop to a traditional sheep pen for a really interesting and simple locally sourced meal straight from the sheep pen with cheese from there. It's called bulls, and it's basically polenta in the interior of the polenta bowl. You put cheese, you put some sour cream. Sometimes you can even put some smoked bacon or any type of meat, and you put it on the grill. The cheese melts inside, and then you can just cut it or eat it like a snowball. And it's very it's a dish that can keep you going. It gives you a lot of energy, and it doesn't get more fresh than this. They make it right over there in front of the sheep pen. So continuing, we dive deeper into the heart of Maramuresh. Now that we crossed the mountains, we will spend the night in a beautifully restored authentic house where many wood carvers keep their traditions alive. You'll see these interiors are very specific to Maramuresh, and once you'll see one, you'll recognize them on the way. So this is what we'll do the next day. We actually start the morning with an epic ride on one of the last steam trains in Europe, which passes through the Carpathian forestry. It's a picturesque railway that was used for coal transportation back in the days, and is the perfect opportunity for a picnic by the river while immersing into the surrounding landscapes. This would be how the steam train looks like. And well, we went a little bit overboard with this picture, I have to admit, but it's a really fun ride. It's a really fun ride, and it's in the middle of the nature. It doesn't get much better in terms of going back in time. Now, nowadays, the logs might have been replaced with tourists, but the route stays the same, follows a pristine valley deep into the forest, where all you can hear is chirping of the birds, flow of the river, and the iconic whistle of the train through the sound of its tracks. It's quite a beautiful, enchanting journey. Let's see. Oh, there we go. For some reason, I do have some problems with these videos, but worry not, because at the end we can play any videos you'd like during the Q&A. But moving forward, we can admire the wooden churches of Maramuresh, and these are also inscribed in UNESCO World Heritage List. The first one that we visit is Ieud Monastery. It's you see two pictures here. The first one on the left is the old roof. The one on the right is the new roof, and it needs to be replaced every like 15 years or so if it needs to be preserved properly. It is the original building, 300-400 years old, but because it's built entirely out of wood, it does need a lot more maintenance than the ones in Bucovina built in stone. The reason why they had to build these ones in wood was that this region was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was Catholic at that time, and they wouldn't allow the Romanian population to build their own Orthodox churches in stone. For this reason, they had to rebuild it and rebuild it and rebuild it. Moreover, these type of churches date back from 1200s, but they're always burned or destroyed by the Tatars, Mongols, Ottomans, and so on. Much easier to destroy than the stone ones. the beauty of it doesn't lie in the outside, on the exterior, like the stone churches, but in the interior. You can see here really beautiful, simple, more like naive works of art, but the same technique applied to people who came to the church every week to give and to share the word of God and the Bible to the villagers and people in the respective communities. Even nowadays, it's so beautiful to watch the technique that was used, because it's not painted directly on wood. You can imagine that would fade away very easily, but on a type of papyrus that is glued to the walls in order to stick better to stand better the test of time. Now, I have a question for you, and I won't answer this, but you might have observed there is a different writing in here. In Romania, we use the Latin alphabet. So why was there this weird writing over here on these paintings? If anyone has any clue, I'll be happy to get your response in the chat, and Georgiana will let me know, and I'll see and I'll reply regarding this. Okay, so yeah, we got Cyrillic. Well, it's a good point. And what was the reason why it was Cyrillic? Let's see. Romanians were writing in Cyrillic, yes, because looks Greek, yes. So it's Cyrillic, but with Slavonic, with Greek influence. So the influence of the Romanian church and the Orthodox Church came through the Byzantine Empire. So the way of preaching, the way of writing, the church preaching was in Old Church Slavonic, it's called, and they used the Greek alphabet. The Byzantine Empire, even though it was, until it was conquered Roman, the official language was Greek, which even throughout the Roman Empire was still the unofficial language that most of the people were using. This is why Greek stood the test of time so well in these areas in the East. Merchants were using it, churches started using it in the areas of Romania. They started using Cyrillic alphabet, Slavonic alphabet, even though the words had the Latin base. So it was only in the 19th century when the country started modernizing, actually just before King Carol I came in, that the country switched back to the Latin alphabet to be easier to adapt to the modern times. But because the church was so important, and the church was basically dictating the education. If you wanted to learn how to read and write, you would pursue a career in the church. You would become a priest. Most of the literate people were priests because they knew they needed to know how to read the Bible. Great question. So thank you very much for that. Now, going forward, we have other wooden churches and monasteries. Bersana Monastery Complex. It looks new. It is new. These churches were actually built after the old Bersana Monastery, which is the monastery actually inscribed in UNESCO, was very difficult to restore. So the high priests of Romania decided they will build an entire complex of new wooden churches, taller, grander, more beautiful, and so on, that will take your eyes away. So actually now they are more visited than the old one. For one reason or another, I still like the charm of the old one, especially that you can still see the paintings inside, old paintings, even if they're not as nice and new as the ones you've seen before. It has a certain charm to it. So the church is also in like an apple orchard. It's very beautiful and enchanting for a picnic. Definitely recommend this one as well. And before we move to other churches. I know it might sound weird to have fun in a cemetery, but this one is unique, I promise you. A local artist actually decided to create colorful funeral stones depicting the life of the deceased in a comic way, making it a real pleasure walking around and reading them. And it's difficult to do it without a guide because they're even difficult to understand in Romanian. They're written in a very weird Romanian way to rhyme. So this is the 𝗪𝗓 Cemetery. Welcome. We finished the day wandering around. It's a fascinating result of people making fun of their own death, seeing death not as the end, but as, you know, a cycle, a natural cycle of life. And we can actually do a live interpretation of one of these crosses. I highly recommend you go with someone in there. If you visit it, your experience will be much more enhanced. And if anyone can guess why this person died, feel free to share in the comments. You can have an idea from the image. So on every cross is a story that rhymes about how the person died. So I will translate it for you. Said, since I was a kid, I worked in the town hall, but at home I was always drinking. I was always drinking palinka with the bucket, and I was always thirsty. Nobody could could quench my thirst. So as such, I developed a disease, and unfortunately that couldn't be treated. Unfortunately, my mother had to bury me. My poor wife and children left me to die. And this is actually not as old. It's 2018, and the person had 58 years old. You can still see the way, even if it was a tragic incident, people realized and take it as it is. And they even have interesting pictures to go along with it. There's tens of them, and if you're, gory enough, you can just order a cross for yourself for when it's time. Usually, people order them in advance, but it's an experience. So later on, we will have to finish the day. We'll end up at Mrs. Ileana, which will be our host for the night. She's also one of the few remaining people in Maramureș that are involved with traditional weaving. Now everybody's exporting materials, crafting these Romanian blouses overseas. But this is the old traditional way. It can take weeks or months to finish a blouse like the one she's wearing. So it's a very interesting insight into the old lives of the villagers over here. She actually cooks amazing, so we really like to stay with her when we go to Maramureș. And I want to share with you another dish that I could probably never have enough of. You can go 𝗪𝗲𝘂𝗔. 𝗪𝗲𝘂𝗔 are also of Ottoman influence, Turkish influence. They are rolled cabbage roll. They're cabbage rolls with minced meat. Traditionally, they were made with beef, but in Romania we make them with pork. Some rice, roll them up, spices, herbs, and then you boil them. You put them in the oven. Served, of course, with the ubiquitous polenta, with the sour cream, maybe with the chili pepper, some red wine afterwards. You're good to go for the bed. You need to eat the 𝗪𝗲𝘂𝗔 the proper way. I've seen it many times without the polenta or without the sour cream. It's not the same. Trust us, you won't regret it. Now, moving forward, we go to day 9, and we end up in Cluj-Napoca, the fastest growing city in Romania. It's also dubbed the outer capital of Romania, where we explore its stylish medieval area with buzzing restaurants and youthful crowds. But before we go there, we do pay a visit to the 𝗥𝗵𝘂𝗵𝗂𝘀 Memorial. This is a more cultural visit and more a journey for the soul, in my opinion. Being a former communist country, Romania experienced great losses. And an important place to understand how people were treated during the totalitarian regime is through a tour at this memorial of the victims of communism and resistance, because a lot of the political prisoners and a lot of the people who opposed this regime were put in here, left to die, miserable conditions, torture and whatnot, crazy experiments as well in between the inmates. So it was gladly turned into a museum, so we never have to go through the same regime again. I'm very passionate about this history, so I'm not nervous about the presentation. It's just something that affects me. So luckily we're not in these situations anymore. Now we continue to Cluj-Napoca. Cluj-Napoca is a very vibrant city. And this statue actually represents the best blend of cultures in this effervescent city. Matthias was half Romanian, Matthias Corvinus, and half Hungarian. The famous Corvin Castle was actually named after him, and it stands today as proof for our tolerance and unity in diversity. It's a symbol of Cluj-Napoca with which both Romanians and Hungarians pride themselves with. And since we're in Cluj-Napoca, what better street food to try than langos? Langos, also of Hungarian influence, is a fried sour dough with some cheese, sour cream, but always garlic. The most important ingredient and always in Romanian cuisine, to be honest, is garlic. These are always great for a quick bite, on the way, on the go, goes really well in between visits. So later on, we let you explore the hip area of the old town of Cluj-Napoca, where the old meets the new, all kinds of boutique places started popping up, and we will sleep in one of those as well, in a restored historical building right in the old town. And we continue our journey to Turda and 𝗪𝗪𝘁. Our next stop is an imposing citadel where we take a guided tour that depicts 2,000 years of history from ancient Roman times, when this city is from, up to the Romanians' Union Day. And this is the name similarity. Now, Turda salt mine, before reaching 𝗪𝗪𝘁, we reached Turda salt mine. And if you've never visited a salt mine before, you will be impressed with this one. It's a massive network of mines that has been restored to welcome tourists. They don't extract salt from it anymore. They sometimes call it Disneyland. It even has a Ferris wheel in the middle of it. It has an amphitheater. It has soccer field and ping pong tables, table tennis, anything you could imagine, it has it. Boats in the middle of the salt mine? Why not? Go around, explore some caves just underground in a former salt mine, in a bell-shaped salt mine. This water was not here when they were exploiting the mine, actually. This came up from all the water infiltration in the chamber of the salt mine with time, since they didn't exploit it anymore. And we finally reached 𝗪𝗪𝘁. This is the star-shaped citadel is located in the upper town. It's a beautiful walk. It's nicely integrated with nature. It's being restored. There's all kinds of events going on. It's a Vauban style citadel with 7 bastions. It has a Baroque elements to it. It dates from 1700s, when the Austro-Hungarians built fortifications in this area against the Ottomans. And you can find reenactments nowadays, all the way from Roman times to changing of the guards. Our own Liberty Bell, because 𝗪𝗪𝘁, as we said, it was the place where the unification was ratified, where Transylvania, Moldova, and Wallachia were all united under one country after the First World War in 1918. And you'll end the day with a great lunch if you're up for it. Ever tried bone marrow? It's not for everyone, but if you want to really feel like a medieval nobleman, it's the closest you can probably get in an ammunition storage cellar This is a former ammunition storage turned into a wine cellar and restaurant. And it's right in the heart of the citadel, and it's quite good. Don't worry, they have vegetarian options as well, but just an exquisite dish for you to try as well. And we end the journey in a comfortable bed right next to the citadel with gorgeous views around it to get ready for another day, getting very close to the end of our journey now, but not before we pass by Biertan and 𝗪𝗫, the medieval towns in the center of Transylvania, the most important Saxon villages with fortified churches. So why did they build fortified churches? This is Biertan, because the Tatar invasions, the Mongol invasions, and later the Ottomans were all constantly raiding and attacking these areas. It was very complicated to build long village walls, very costly as well. They would use the one building that was already fortified. Most of the houses were built in wood or more shabby. The church was always the most important element of the village. So they built walls around the church. They built a second layer of walls, walls, and so on. So they ended up with these majestic, very hard to attack structures. Biertan is one of the most intricate and one of the most intriguing in terms of design. And it's the place where we can find a very ingenious locking mechanism that won the awards of royal courts hundreds of years ago. And also the infamous marriage tower, where people who wanted to divorce were locked into one room with a single bed, a single set of cutlery, and no outside access until they got back together. Kind of like the pandemic nowadays, probably. Maybe you can notice the mask on the woman's face on the mannequin. So it's adapted to our times as well. Luckily, me and Georgiana didn't have to go through the marriage tower. So we're still here today for you, presenting tours, and hopefully we'll see you in Biertan and in 𝗪𝗫 one day, live. So reaching 𝗪𝗫, one of the last inhabited fortresses in Europe, medieval fortresses, listed also in UNESCO. It has an alluring old town and a couple surviving guilds towers. This place is also known as the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler, the ruthless ruler that served as inspiration for Count Dracula. So these are just a couple of guilds and elements from 15, 16, 1700s that we still have in 𝗪𝗫. Of course, their importance waned with the Industrial Revolution. And one of the centerpieces of 𝗪𝗫 is the clock tower, the main entrance into the fortified citadel. This was where all the decisions were taken. This is where the city hall was passing judgment, having the clock on top of it, deciding when the work day starts and when it ends as well. And you can find out more about 𝗪𝗫. This is just a picture with before and after the vampires are coming in 𝗪𝗫, just next to Vlad the Impaler's father house. Okay, maybe it was from a few glasses of red wine and we got it confused with blood, but still. You'll probably turn into a vampire as well if you visit 𝗪𝗫, especially if you're close to this building, Vlad Dracul house. Dracula was son of Dracul. This is what it means in Romania. So Dracul also means devil in Romania. So imagine Vlad Dracula actually means Vlad, son of the devil. Pretty scary, and he was just a boy. And we just released our 𝗪𝗫, Explore 𝗪𝗫 tour. It's a virtual tour in which you go around with Georgiana as your tour guide, exploring its intricate networks of streets. We'll talk about that later. If anyone is interested, Georgiana will send you a link in the chat to have a more in-depth feeling, an interactive tour on which you can choose left or right, and you will be deciding which way you'll go exploring this medieval town right in front of the attractions. We can't leave 𝗪𝗫 before trying the bean soup in bread. It's a hearty, very meaty, usually 𝗕𝗶𝗴𝗵𝗹 soup, so you don't need the main course after that. It's a main course in itself. It's best served with red onion and salt, and there's also a vegetarian option if you feel like it. And in the end, you crash, you spend your night in the medieval town of 𝗥cie 𝗱𝗄 in a unique accommodation, renovated, restored, in a traditional building over there. Quite nice to mix the medieval feeling with the modern charm. Before we go back to Bucharest, we just take a quick stop to Bran and Brașov. We reach another highlight basically of our tour, arriving at Bran Castle, commonly known as Dracula's Castle. We actually try to debunk the mystery around it because Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, never visited or stayed in this castle, but it is nicer looking than other castles. I like Vlad the Impaler telling everyone to stay safe, wash their hands, and see you next time. So imagine, a full moon, this intricate castle put into the novel of Bram Stoker, the Irish novelist that wrote Dracula. And this is when actually people started associated Dracula and Vlad the Impaler with this castle, even though there's no real connection to it. But a howling wolf, a full moon on the background, reading a novel, a gothic novel, horror novel, and you might just get the idea that this castle is haunted. I'll let you decide this. We'll move on forwards to Brașov. It's a charming city just next to Bran. We can visit here the Black Church, an important turning point in religious affairs in the Middle Ages. And we also discover the foundation of the first Romanian school. An old picture and a new picture, nothing to do with the Orthodox churches that you're used to maybe in Romania. This is because they used the same, builders that were in the area that also built this Black Church, which was Catholic and later turned Protestant. Its name, Black Church, comes from a fire that took Brașov by surprise in the 16th century, and its bricks turned black. Now, I can't let you go before one final dish. It's called the Romanian calamari. Romanian calamari are not calamari. These are served in only one restaurant all around Romania, and I highly encourage you to do that, to try them. This is a neo-traditional cuisine. It has ancient Romanian recipes blended with contemporary appeal, and the Romanian calamari are actually little strips of cow stomach, deep fried, with all kinds of little veggies around and sauces. So I hate usually this type of dish, like tripe, what they call it, but the Romanian calamari are definitely an experience to try. I love them, even though I dislike tripe entirely. So it's definitely something that I would encourage you to do while in Brașov. We also have an interactive virtual tour in Brașov. It's with me that will tell you all kinds of stories about Brașov, similar to what Georgiana does in 𝗥cie 𝗱𝗄. So if you're interested in that, Georgiana will just put a link into the description below, and you can find out more about it. Local treats included in there. We'll end our day meters away from the Black Church and the center of the old town of Brașov in a restored mansion, an old restored mansion, right in the heart of the historic center. You will have a really good night's sleep, I promise you that, especially after that delicious food. And on to the way of Bucharest, we couldn't miss 𝗵𝗃 Road. 𝗵𝗃 Road is voted one of the best driving roads in the world. It's a journey in itself. It takes around half a day to properly stop for pictures and enjoy it. The guys from Top Gear actually came here with helicopters before the drones were cool, filmed an entire with race cars, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, you name it. Just watch it on YouTube, or I'll share the link at the end in the description. It's an amazing road. Once you go on the top, we'll find a glacier lake. We stop to revel in the breathtaking in the breathtaking landscape that surrounds us, or you can do a pose like sometimes I feel to do, just better for social media or for a tour like this. Don't tell anyone I shared it with you. And some more serious poses. After all these social media pictures, maybe you're ready for some food. There's a lot of local bites, locally sourced from the shepherds around. So you can really try nice cured meats, cheeses, a special type of cheese that you see here in the bark of the tree. Really, really nice and makes for a nice lunch break. Later on, we actually visit the real lair of Vlad the Impaler. It's called Romania Fortress. It's on the top of the mountain, unlike Bran. Very difficult to get over there. Even today, you need to climb more than 1,400 steps to get there. It's not that difficult, but you need to take your breaks. Once you get there, the surroundings are spectacular. You just see everything around you, the valleys. You can imagine how armies were passing by. You can imagine forests of impaled people, like this gruesome leader we had back in the days. It's really an experience to go over there. And fortunately, it's reopened because at one point it was closed due to bear sightings in the area. Also next to Poinar is 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Dam, the largest dam in the country. It's quite beautiful to drive around it and also to wander around. There's beautiful birds around, and legend has it some of the biggest fish in the country are in there because they're blocked by the dam that was built in communist times actually, and actually flooded a whole village with people having to relocate, to leave their cemeteries around, their relatives in there. Wasn't a really nice thing, but it provided a lot of electricity. This is the reason why they put a statue to remind that for the benefits of the dam with Prometheus over here. Now we're trying to ban micro hydro power plants in Romania, so hopefully there won't be any other flooded villages. And I promise this is the last food because I'm already getting hungry, but you cannot leave Romania. If there's one dish you need to try in Romania, one is 𝗵𝗂𝗇. 𝗵𝗂𝗇. It's easy to pronounce and even easier to eat them. These are sweet dough, sweet and sour dough, basically, deep fried, topped with sour cream and sour cherry, usually jam, or sometimes, like you see in here, with chocolate and a little bit of ice cream. I might be biased, but it's probably the best dessert in the world, and you don't realize how good it is until you try it. We've seen faces changing entirely of our customers, our guests, after they took the first bite of the 𝗵𝗂𝗇. And it's hard to get it in different regions, in other regions of Romania, in different regions than Romania, because the dough is very specific. It's made with a specific sweet cheese that can be found in the mountains of Romania. So after that food, I'm sure you're ready to have a relaxing night. You're getting ready for your return trip to Bucharest. You're going back to Bucharest and you're getting ready for your departure, or you can continue your journey and explore Bucharest a little bit more. Before you fly out of Romania, there's one last recommendation I have for you is 𝗕𝗓𝗓. 𝗕𝗓𝗓 is the largest spa in Europe, built just a few years ago. It's totally closed with the pandemic right now, but I have a feeling they will open it in the summer. And it's all built on natural hot springs. So it's really beautiful to just go around, relax, many pools, slides, massage. It really refreshes you after all the journey, because sometimes after a long trip, when you come back from a vacation, you need another vacation, even though you enjoy your vacation, but it was quite an active trip. So this will make sure you'll come back home refreshed and ready. Any challenges you might have. Now, I didn't follow all the chat. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I can invite Georgiana over to answer any questions you might have. And thank you so much for bearing with me a few extra minutes to go through this tour, but I really didn't want to miss anything, for you guys to miss anything on this tour. So you can unmute, and if anyone wants to address any questions, you can unmute. You doing it?
All right. So we are going to start our live Q&A now, but I will, this is fantastic. So thank you so much, Catherine.
Okay, yeah, sorry guys, the Georgiana just needs to tackle a little bit of technical stuff to share with you some of the links, I think, in here, but I am ready to answer any questions. Let's see, in the chat box. What's the name of the place from the main slide picture? The main, yeah, that's 𝗪𝗏 Bula Lake. Let's see. Okay, now much better. I think you can only hear me talking. Hello, Woody. Wow, that's an amazing blouse. Wow, I couldn't help but notice. So, transfer Bula Lake. Yeah, go ahead. How much would this 2-week trip cost in dollars? This trip usually starts around 3,200 euros. We do have discounts for 2021, but it's in the range of 3,000. Of course, we are known for our flexibility, so we can adapt anything, be it private or if it's a small group tour. We can keep it like that. Can you repost the quiz link, Georgiana? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, yes, I know there's a lot of eating and a lot of wining and dining recommendations I had. So hopefully that started your appetite for Romania.
All right, I'm back again. So to answer Catherine's questions from before, we had a question because Discover Romania Tour is actually a group tour that we also do physically when, you know, international travel allows us. And I've just shared in the chat our future dates. There are a couple of dates for 2021, one for June, one for September. We hope they will be able to go through. So far, we cannot know for sure. Most probably September date is most certain, but we'll see how it goes. I have also shared the dates for 2022. And just so you know what this type of tour includes. So all of the accommodations that you've just seen are accommodations that we stay at during our Discover Romania tour. All of the activities are included. So there are no extra fees that you have to pay. Your only extra cost on this tour would be your meals, and that's lunches and dinners. Some activities such as a cooking workshop or samplings or wine tasting, everything that involves food and drink, but it is considered an activity, is included. So whatever you drink and eat outside of the tour or its activities, like in a restaurant, that's not included, but breakfast is included. We don't want to limit you with anything budgeted, anything pre-planned. There are so many options, good options, especially in bigger cities of Romania, but in smaller ones too, on what to eat. And while you're here in Romania, you'll discover so much variety that we find it's unfair to, plan everything ahead, especially as, food is involved.
We like to leave room for flexibility because everyone is different, and we especially cater our tours in such a way so our guests can make the most out of it and not feel restricted in any way at all. Someone asked what capacity the tours are. This is why we actually limit our tours to just 6 people. We don't usually go over 6 people unless it's a larger private group, because we want to make sure we give you our utmost attention and dedication, so you will have the best time possible in Romania, because our goal at the end is for you to have the best vacation, not only in Romania, but in your life, to make memories for a lifetime, to tell other people, and to contribute in our way to the Romanian sustainable tourism movement.
We are putting our bet on the food and drinks.
Someone asked if the last dessert was also known as Romanian donuts. Yes, that's correct. You can't really have enough of them.
I have also shared our future-free virtual tours. The next one is called Untouched Romania. This one is also built around another group tour that we offer, a physical group tour. And it's actually the itinerary that inspired the YouTubers from Flying the Nest, their tour for when they came here in Romania. So Flying the Nest series is built around this tour. It will cover more untouched areas, more adventurous regions. So, you know, it's different than Discover Romania in the sense that it doesn't offer a complete overview of all of the regions, but it does offer an insight into more remote locations.
Someone is asking if the recording will be available. Yes, Sherry, it will be available on Facebook, and we'll probably upload it on YouTube starting next month.
And it'll be added in the follow-up email.
Yeah, we'll also send a follow-up email to everyone that registered for this event, so you don't miss on anything. Are your tours solo friendly, or is it mostly couples? They are, you know, we had mixed guests, so there's really no...
We've had a lot of solo traveler women,
and
couples.
We really don't restrict. It's fine either way, just for solo travelers, unless they're willing to share a bed. Of course, they will need to pay for a single supplement. But everything else is taken care of, and you'll still get all the other benefits and private transportation and so on. We do try to cater for each and every individual traveler, be it a couple, be it a person. It's the same to us, and our hope is that you'll, you know, cross the borders of Romania as a guest and leave as a friend. This is always the nicest thing that we can hear from our guests. And fortunately, most of them see us like that. To clarify, did you say your size is 6 people? Yes, indeed. And our 2022 tour dates are just in the chat, higher in the chat. I can send them right now as well. No. And I'll send them right now in the chat. Any other questions? I've seen someone that is a cook, Kathy, I believe, was it? Said had a great, can't find it anymore, but yeah, great experience, and I'm a cook. That's heartwarming. Okay, so new dates, yeah. Any other questions that might have been missed? Any possibility of gluten-free options? Have we answered this one?
I have.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let us know if there's anything else. I will repost the link. Post or pre-tour to Greece, absolutely. Yeah, we do help our guests with connections, and this is part of our expertise as well. And we try to come up with pre-arrival, post-arrival, you know, post-departure service. So any help you need in regards of flight tickets, connections from Romania, we'll be happy to do so.
I just read, I was laughing because I just read Woody's reply, like, after bombing your previous quizzes, I finally well on one. Yeah, well, I'm sure you didn't bomb anything before. We do have another poll for you, if you are so kind to, I have to move to my other laptop. If you're so kind to answer.
Yes, we're just kind of asking people before we shut off the event, what type of tours you would like from us, because the vaccine situation is still inconclusive, borders are still closed, and restrictions are still in place. We want to continue to offer this to everyone around the world. So it will help us a lot if you can share with us in a poll, on email, on chat, anything, in the quiz, comments, what other types of tours you'd like from us, different experiences or different itineraries, a specific region. Anything at all would really help to make sure we answer your questions.
I have seen a couple of new questions. Romania was the best travel destination for the dollar. Food especially is not that expensive. Which is why we decided not to include lunches and dinners, because it does offer flexibility and it's affordable. We do tours in the 7-10 day frame. Some of them, all of them are actually on our site. The first one that comes to mind is Become a Romanian Epicurean. It's a 7-day tour, and it focuses on our cuisine, but not only, it's it's culture and cuisine all blended together. How much are lunches and dinner in general? For lunch, $10, $15, dinners, $20. Of course, this really depends on you. When I say $20, it includes a hearty meal. It includes a drink. If you're a lighter eater, it can go low. If you want something else to drink, it can go high. So yeah.
One thing that changed in terms of pricing in Romania, especially with the pandemic in recent years, was the accommodation prices. So they went, I think they're more than double than they were 1-2 years ago. So this is what actually drives the prices of the tours higher up. Because once you're in Romania, you're usually in Romania for a limited time. And once, I'm not sure if you're following up, again in Romania, since it's a long travel distance, so we do encourage people to have a more unique accommodation, even if it's a little bit more expensive. Our suggestions are these boutique, traditional, authentic houses. They're not what you would imagine a luxury resort. They are small family owned. They integrate well with nature. They respect the traditions and the cultures and the heritage of Romania, all while keeping the comforts and the cleanliness at very high standards, as long as with some really good cuisine options. So thank you very much, yes, for the lodgings appreciations. Now, I'm not sure if there's any other unanswered questions. Please do write them down. If we can't see anything else, we're approaching the 2-hour mark, which was over what we expected, but with so many questions and with so many mouth-watering recipes, probably. I think everyone got involved. So thank you very much. What is the currency in Romania? As mentioned at the beginning of the tour, is the leu. The leu, or the lion in direct translation, is roughly 25 cents US or 20 cents Euro cents. Post-pandemic, do you think lodging costs might drop? Not really, because a lot of Romanians realize there's more to these unique accommodations, and they got the taste of it. Usually these types of accommodations were more appreciated by the foreign travelers, whereas Romanians, they always wanted to explore outside, to go to different countries, and to stay in a resort or anything like that. Because they couldn't travel, now they've seen there are really nice accommodations that we have in Romania as well, and that we really tried to handpick for our travelers. Fortunately, we do have an extensive list of similar properties that we can go through, but the prices probably will not go down. Can't wait to travel to Romania with one of your tours when it's safe to do so. We can't wait to go back to touring as well. I was just talking to Georgiana, and I miss guiding live so much, but this is, the closest we can do. And I don't think I'm best at it, but I just try my best. I try to do it. and keep hoping that everyone's travel flame will stay on. And when it will be safe, I'll be very, very happy to go back to live touring and go around the country.
I have noted all of your virtual tour suggestions. Another thing that I have shared inside the chat are the 2 interactive tours for which you have a discount if you want to check them out. They are documentary style. So through both Sighișoara and Brașov, you get to walk with one of us. Brașov is Vlad and Sighișoara is me. So we literally walk on the streets of the towns, and we tell you a little bit more. We tell you about what we see along the way. The code was subscriber 30. That's just to say thank you for watching us and supporting us every month. And I've also shared the future virtual tours that we have planned right now. One was Untouched Romania that we covered. And the second one is on the 27th of March. It's Easter traditions in Romania. Now, Easter in Romania is actually at the beginning of May because we are an Orthodox country, but we have decided to put this on the 27th of March because Catholic Easter this year is on the 4th of April. So it's one of those rare years when the 2 Easters are so far apart. But we wanted to bring you some Orthodox Easter traditions, and we're not going to cover only Romania. It's mostly Eastern Europe that share this Easter traditions that we're gonna discuss on our future virtual tour. So if you want to register for the tour, you can do so through that link that I've shared. But we are also going to include this in our follow-up email.
Yeah.
What is COVID situation idea if when visiting is safe?
It's a very great question.
It's a great question.
With everyone right now, if you have the vaccine and if you had COVID in the last 90 days, you can come into Romania without problems.
Without having to quarantine.
Yes. Otherwise, you can come in, you need a test, and then you need to quarantine
for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, and then you can get out of the quarantine in the 8th day if you do another test. But things are, can change quickly. We put our group tours out there because we're confident once more vaccines are being rolled out, the confidence in travel will start coming again and the borders will start reopening. However, for any deposits, any travel related, we're super flexible, and we stated this to everyone, even people that couldn't come from last year. All the deposits paid are totally refundable. We want to encourage people to take a decision, take a leap of faith into traveling and into Romania, and everything sooner or later will come back to,
we hope,
maybe not the way it was, but to a travel, and maybe to an even better way of travel, a more sustainable travel, small groups, not mass tourism in coaches and big buses, just staying there connected to the local communities in nature, not crowded. This is all we strive for, and we hope to inspire this type of traveling to you as well.
In a way, that's what we are trying to bring to Romania, as it was lacking in this tourism area, and COVID will probably make it happen for us faster. Yes, and if you do have a vaccine card, you can come without having to quarantine.
Yes, definitely. So our first tours will start in end of June. Sherry, do let us know if you're interested. Someone else, Woody asked
about the virtual
guidebook. We will release a virtual guidebook of Romania that we've been planning for months now. There's a lot of research, a ton of research. Trust me, we'll save you a lot of work, even if you don't come on a guided tour. And it takes us even more work than we expected. So it will probably be released end of March. We'll do our best to do that. It's a very unique.
It's a comprehensive tour, and we're trying to put all of the best things into one. And
the only guidebook to Romania that you will ever need, basically, because most of the international publications, such as Lonely Planet or Rough Guides and so on, which are great, they do not have local guides in Romania. They usually send an editor over here. And so often we compare these tours with what we do when we see there's like a discrepancy, and we want to fill that gap. So thank you so much for tuning in.
For joining us today.
Lovely having you. Thanks for bearing with me and my crazy pictures as well. And hopefully next time we'll have some more videos, and we'll address also your topics about the Carpathian Mountains and so on. We have a few surprises for later during the year.
And one more thing before we go: the people that have filled in the quiz are included in the draw for one of our interactive virtual tours. Your choice between 𝗪𝗁 𝗁 and the second prize was the giveaway, William Blacker's Enchanted Along the Enchanted Way, sorry. And that's the giveaway that we have for all of our Zoom participants. That we will make a draw randomly using random.org, and one winner will get the paperback copy of that book. And the way it will work, we will send you an email telling you that you had won, and then you would have to provide an address, because we can send it either from Europe or from Amazon or so on.
So thank you for joining us, and keep in touch, keep that travel spirit alive, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.